Hey, what's going on guys? Mackenzie Long here. I've been talking about doing some videos that are biblical and principle around business and money, and I think this is important because there are often times where these things can seem like they're complete opposites or that we can't combine a lot of these areas in our life. And I think that if you are religious, it's important to do that in multiple reasons, and one of those being obviously some of the best principles about business and about money are actually in the Bible. And one of the things that the wisest person who has ever lived said was that there are 4 things which are little on the earth, but are exceedingly wise. Meaning there are small things that we can focus on that are very, very wise, very important. And I think this is true about a lot of the principles in business and in money. And they can seem very inconsequential, that they're not that important. However, they make a big difference, not just in our lives, but also in our money and also in our business. And what I've found working with lots of Christians is they oftentimes have a hard time with things like business and with things like money because we're often taught the wrong things about it. So today we're going to be talking about those 4 little things, as you're probably wondering what the heck they are, and really how they apply to your life. And he said that ants, conis, locusts, and spiders, that even though they're small, even though that they're little, they're very wise. And each one of them has a principle that goes along with the way that they live or the way that they do their everyday things. So then too, we can understand what those things are and apply them into our own life. And some of you might say, well, what does it matter? What do these little things matter? And the little things always matter. So what is it that makes an ant special? What does it do that's different than the rest of the insects or the rest of the animal kingdom? And one of the things that it does that's very special is that it's always preparing for the future. The ant is really smart in that it understands seasons. And understanding that in your business and in your life can make a big difference as well. And this is true both for money and for business, that there are going to be different seasons, not just throughout the year, but in your life. We know that there's winter, spring, summer, and fall, and each one of these seasons has a particular thing that's most pertinent that you do at that time. And this is more important probably if you were living back in those days. And this probably seems more important if you're a farmer, but I think it's a great relationship to life as well, in that if you're trying to plant seeds in the winter, you're not going to do very well. So each season has particular things that are important and that you can do in each one of those seasons that you can't or are much less effective in other seasons. So understanding that, what the ants do is they're constantly saving, they're constantly putting away. They're using a portion of today to leave it for tomorrow. So where spring is the time for sowing, summer is the time for protecting and watching the harvest and making sure you're keeping track of things and keeping bad things away from your crops. Spring is the time to harvest, and then winter is the time to regroup. So if you're trying to do the wrong things in the wrong season, it can make it very difficult both in your business and your life and also in your money. And ants are smart enough to know this, and some people have caught on and some people haven't, that there are going to be different seasons in your life. And that preparing or using a part of today to make sure that your tomorrow is also going to be successful. But it's not just tomorrow. There are going to be seasons we didn't know the pandemic was going to happen. And so many people, both in business and in finance, were kind of caught off guard because they were not really prepared for winter to come. And it seems like every time we have a downturn in the market, it's a huge surprise to everybody and they're freaking out and they don't know what to do. But yet we know it's going to happen every few years. So why is it that we're not wise like the ants and understand that everything is not going to be up, everything's not going to be positive all the time? There's not one side to something. There's always 2 sides. So why is it that we expect it to always be good and we never expect the bad? And when the bad comes and we're not prepared for it, it's somebody else's fault, it's whatever else happened. Yet if we were to plan for the future and we were to take a portion of today and prepare for tomorrow, we'd probably be in a lot better situation when we do find the negative of things. The other thing that's pretty special about the ant is that it really has no master. but yet it's constantly at work. It doesn't need somebody to make sure that it's doing its job. It's just going to diligently go about its business and constantly moving itself forward, moving the colony forward. And really quick side note, we are doing a financial literacy campaign where we're giving away over $50,000 in financial literacy information. And this is something that's really kind of been put on our heart. We were just with some of the owners of the #1 best-selling personal finance book. You can find it on Amazon, but a lot of these resources people simply don't have. It sold millions of copies to this point. They've done such a fantastic job. It's been in the news all over the place, and it's something that I've been giving to my clients and to my agents, and it's helped really transform their life. And it was different this time because they were doing part of the book tour. We got to spend some time with the author, and it really changed my perspective of things, and that if people don't have this information, they're going to continue to make financial mistakes. And unfortunately, most people don't learn anything about financial education in school. We don't learn it from our parents, which means that we make lots of mistakes when it comes to money because we're financially illiterate. And that means oftentimes they're being taken advantage of. And so the lack of financial literacy is a huge problem in our society. And our group is taking a huge leap to make a difference with that. If that's something that you might be compelled to either get help with for yourself or maybe contribute in some way, definitely reach out to me, as we put a bunch of money into this and we want to be able to give out some of those resources. Down below, there's going to be a MailChimp link that you can use if you'd like to register for your copy of some of these resources. Now, we are giving them away completely free, and just side note disclaimer, this is not something that YouTube is putting on. This is not something that the book publisher is putting on. This is something that we're personally sponsoring. It's not a giveaway or a contest in that manner, but it is something that we want to be able to give back to our community. So we bought thousands of books and tons of resources to be able to help distribute some of these things. And if that's something that interests you, again, click that link down below. We do want some information for you. That way we're not just sending out books and stuff to empty addresses. We will actually call you and confirm that you do actually want to receive a book, and then we can get that out to you. And our hope is that we can help eradicate financial illiteracy. And so back to what we were talking about before, number 2 is the Koni. So what is it that's so special about the Koni that the richest man who ever lived would mention them? And the Koni is very interesting in that it's always in this position where it feels like it's in enemy territory, and it's got all these prey that are after it. It lives amongst the rocks. It's called a rock badger, is also what it's known as well. And it does something very unique in that the badgers listen to mentors. And the mentor's job is to watch out for things that might be happening or things that might be going after the badger who's out there trying to collect food or gather the things that they need. And the mentor is standing up and watching what's going on, making sure that that individual does not get into trouble. And that's pretty unique amongst the Konis, which I think is very important for people as well. And one of the challenges in today's society, it seems like, is that we want to be comforted in the things that we're doing and the life path that we've chosen. And I think there's a huge challenge with that. And the challenge with that is that, like the Konis, they're willing to listen and observe things that are going on, because if they don't, they're going to get consumed. Right? They're going to get caught by whatever that predator is. And I think that's often true with our life as well, that if we're not paying attention to all of the dangers around us and we don't have somebody who's watching our back, the chances are we're going to stumble into something that we probably shouldn't be on. And that's the importance of a mentor. That's the importance of having people in your corner and in your life that are watching out for what's best for you. However, that's not really what happens. We see somebody post on social media that they bought a new car or a big house, and we know that they can't afford it, but yet everybody congratulates them. And if you have a car payment that's bigger than how much money you're putting into savings, you're headed for disaster. That's just a mathematical fact. However, that's what a lot of people are doing, and that's what seems to get praise because that's what people like to see. And unfortunately, that's what people are being directed to. Whereas somebody like myself, or hopefully some kind of mentor in your life, would say, hey, that probably isn't a good idea. You're going to lead to financial ruin. You're going to lead to business ruin if you keep doing these things. But you also have to be open to listening, because as much as that mentor yells to the other Koni that's out running around when he sees the eagle, the one that is out running around, if they don't listen to those warnings, they're the ones that get eaten. And now number 3, what's important about the locust? The locust knows that it's not that powerful on its own. It understands cooperation. It understands working with other people, and that it can move mountains if they work together. They're the difference between independent and interdependent, meaning they understand that if they work together, they're much stronger, that they're better in a group than they are as individuals. And I think that's true with life as well. However, we seem to be taught all the time that we should be doing things on our own. We should be going out on our own. Go do these things by yourself. You'd be so much better off if you were all off on your own. But what happens when you're all by yourself? You're easier to pick off. You're easier for prey. You're easier for everything else. But working in a group is so powerful. And unfortunately, I think it's sometimes the ego that can really get after us and say, hey, you can go do this thing on your own. And it's not that you can't or that you shouldn't, but there's also an understanding of if that's going to actually be better for you in the long run. Sure, you can take more credit for doing more things, but is that actually more beneficial for you or not? Or should you be cooperating? Should you be around like-minded people, people who have the same interests as you, that are headed in the same direction as you, that want to accomplish the same things as you? And number 4, as we wrap this up, coming into the spider. So what is so significant about the spider? Most of us would go, I don't know, I don't really like spiders. If I saw one, I'd have to burn the house down. But something that's interesting about the spider is that it cannot build a house. It cannot build a mansion. So why is it, or how is it, that spiders always end up living in the most extravagant places in the world? So although they can't build them, they end up living in them. And the message there is the ability to be able to profit off of things that other people do. And the spider's able to take those things that other people have created and use it to its own benefit, the opportunities, whatever it might be. And I think that's one of the hardest things, or one of the most interesting things to me about being born in the United States. Did you know that it's actually more likely for an immigrant to become successful than it is for somebody from the US? Why is that? The opportunity is the exact same. The difference being is one is taking advantage of it and the other is not. Now we can get into the schooling system, and that's a whole nother debate for another day on what they're actually trying to get people to do, but it's the idea of taking advantage of the things that you have around you. And if you're born in the United States, if you're born in America, you've got some great opportunities that the rest of the world really doesn't have. And so it's both being grateful for having those things, but also being willing to take advantage of those things for the other things that you want. And that's definitely something that the spider has learned how to do. And so as we go on, what are the things that we get for actually following sound principles? Riches, honor, long life, righteousness, these are all the important things that if you're willing to take counsel and listen to wise words, and these are obviously not my words, but I've gone through and kind of wanting to learn them more and what they actually meant. Why did the richest man in the world talk about these 4 little things? It's not a bedtime story. It's something that we can actually benefit and learn from. So if you want those things, riches, honor, prosperity, leadership, righteousness, all of these things are by following sound principles. And so how can you apply these things in your own life? And by the way, if you didn't know who I was talking about, the richest man that has ever lived was actually King Solomon, and he's the one that wrote Proverbs. So if you haven't seen it already, Proverbs 30:24 through 28 is the one that talks about these if you want to dive about it, if you want to dive into it even deeper. And if you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button. Don't forget to also hit the subscribe as well. And as we come out with more videos around business and money, especially wrapped in biblical principles, you might also want to smash that little bell button. That way, as videos are coming out, you get those sent to you directly and you don't have to miss one. We've got some great content coming out as well that you're not going to want to miss. I think it's going to help you out a ton, and I hope this has as well. And as always, I will see you later. Bye.